A Japanese man, dressed in very bright and colorful pajamas, suddenly wakes up inside a strange white room. The room has no windows, no doors, and no visible ceiling. When he goes closer to inspect one of the walls, he notices something strange sticking out of it. It looks like a private part. Curious, he pokes it a couple of times and then presses the tip. Immediately, hundreds of small baby angels appear, giggling from the walls and floor. They only stay for a few seconds before disappearing again. But now, all around the room, similar buttons shaped like that same object are sticking out. This strange moment is called the learning phase. When the man sniffs the finger he used to press the first button, he suddenly screams in fear, then starts crying and begging for help, but nobody answers. Left with no choice, he begins experimenting, pressing the buttons one by one. Each button makes a random object appear in the room. Sometimes it's something small like a toothbrush. Other times it's something big like a vase. He learns that pressing the same button always brings the same object. For example, one button gives him chopsticks every time, and he soon builds up a pile of them. But his fun ends when he presses the button next to it, and a small cart shoots out of the wall and hits his legs. Another button even turns into a butt that farts in his face. After hours of pressing different buttons, the man has filled the room with all kinds of random things. When he throws a ball against the wall, it presses one of the buttons and gives him sushi. Excited because he's hungry, he asks out loud for soy sauce, but, of course, nobody replies. He presses the sushi button again and again, creating a pile of sushi but still no sauce. Finally, after he finishes eating, the soy sauce bottle appears too late. Angry, he pushes it aside and keeps testing other buttons. One gives him a pair of old 3D glasses. When he puts them on, he sees one of the baby angels pointing at his private area. Thinking this is an important clue, he presses the related button. But all that happens is a countdown, followed by a huge butt appearing from above and farting on him. Hours pass. He entertains himself by reading manga books that appear from the buttons. But when he wants volume 6, he can only get 5, 7, 8, and 9. Never the 6th one. Frustrated, he keeps pressing until, by luck, one button makes part of the wall slide open, revealing a hidden door. Overjoyed, he celebrates his discovery. But in his excitement, he forgets which button opened the exit. He presses the wrong ones. One makes an African tribesman run across the room, another pours water on his head. Finally, he finds the right button again. The wall opens and he runs toward freedom. But just as he reaches it, the door slams shut in his face. The man tries again to escape, but the door shuts right in his face, just like the first time. That's when he realizes the door only stays open as long as the strange button tip is pressed down. So, he starts coming up with creative ways to keep it pressed. First, he tries holding it down with his foot, then smacks it with a fly swatter from a distance so he can run to the door quickly. He even tries pulling it with a jump rope or pushing air at it with a fan. Nothing works. Next, he rides the little cart hoping it will give him more speed, but after several attempts, he accepts he can't time it right. So now he thinks, instead of rushing to the door, he needs something heavy to hold the button down. He puts a giant vase on top of it, but the button still pops back up. His next idea is to make the vase heavier by filling it. He tries using the water button, but no matter what, the water always falls on him and not inside the vase. Then he tries filling it with sushi, but once it's full, it becomes so heavy he can't lift it. To fix this, he uses chopsticks to remove the sushi one piece at a time until he can barely lift the vase again. Carrying it over to the wall, he realizes he forgot which button actually opens the door. He presses one at random, and the African tribesman comes running out, bumping into the vase and breaking it in half. Furious and on the edge of losing it, the man screams nonstop, then finds the correct button again. This time he tries covering it with sushi, but the button still pops back up through the rice. He tries taping it down, then tape plus a steel plate, but nothing works. Exhausted, he takes some painkillers and even a nap, because the door has been smacking his back over and over. Later, when he wakes up wanting to brush his teeth, He presses what he thinks is the water button, but instead a rope drops down from the ceiling. This gives him fresh hope. He decides to swing on the rope toward the exit. His plan works partly. He swings, presses the button, runs, and makes it to the fake wall. But when he tries opening the real door behind it, he finds out it's locked. He barely manages to return before the door closes, though it still slams him as he comes back in. In frustration, he kicks the wall, and suddenly a key appears floating in the middle of the room. But just like the door, the key disappears once the button pops back out. Now he realizes he needs both. The door held open and the key staying in the room at the same time. The problem is, once again, he's lost the right button. He guesses based on where his foot hit earlier, but the first one makes a dog appear and bark at him. The second one also brings the dog. Finally, the third try works. It's the key button. To make sure he doesn't lose it again, he grabs a piece of sushi fish and places it on the correct button as a marker. But when he presses it, the dog shows up again. Luckily, he quickly finds the key button once more. Now with the rope, he starts swinging across the room to reach the right buttons, but it's still not enough. That's when he remembers he had gotten a plunger from one of the buttons earlier. He decides to use the plunger against the wall to push himself farther. After failing once, his plan finally works. With the combination of swinging on the rope and pushing with the plunger, he manages to press the button for the key, grab the key, then press the button for the door, and this time, he reaches the door before it closes. After finally grabbing the key, the man quickly shoves it into the lock and turns it. But to his shock, the door also has a second lock on top. This one needs a 3-digit code. Frustrated, he runs back into the room, just as the door slams against him again. Angry, he throws the plunger at the wall, which accidentally presses the button that summons the African tribesman. Watching him pass by, the man notices something important. The tribesman has 3 numbers written on his forehead. That must be the code. Because the door only stays open for a short time, the man has to repeat the whole rope swinging routine 3 separate times, each time entering one number. On the third try, he stays by the door and finally manages to unlock it. But it's stuck. He pushes with all his strength, and as soon as it starts opening, the wall behind him closes in, leaving him trapped in a tight space with no room to fully open the door. Completely broken, he sits on the floor and cries, thinking back on all the strange objects and silly moments he had with the buttons. He realizes that while he was trapped before, at least he had space to move and things to play with. Now he understands he never appreciated what he had. Just then, he feels a soft breeze on his face. He notices a crack in the wall to his side. It's fake. Without hesitating, he pushes it open and escapes into a long, endless hallway floating in darkness. He runs for what feels like forever, and when he finally reaches another room, his hair has grown longer and his once bright pajamas are faded. This new room looks similar to the first one, empty and with no way out. But instead of baby angels, now there are adult angels who vanish into the walls, leaving behind only their strange button parts. This stage is known as practice. Meanwhile, in Mexico, a boy named Antonio and his family are worried. His father, a professional wrestler known as Escargot Man, is unusually quiet and serious. Antonio's mother thinks it's because his next opponent is much younger, but the grandfather insists that experience matters more than age. Escargot Man's daughter, Sister Karen, drives him to the wrestling ring so he can prepare early. He changes into his wrestling gear and says a prayer. At school, Antonio is bullied by classmates for supporting his dad, who they mock as a weak loser. Later that evening, Sister Karen drives Antonio and their grandfather to the arena to watch the match, though she doesn't stay. They barely find seats before the show begins. The first team to enter the ring are the Northern Tough Ones, made up of Super Demon and Tequila Joe. Then Escargot Man and his partner Silver Eagle arrive under the team name Kiss Me A Lot. The fight begins with Silver Eagle, who starts strong but is quickly overwhelmed when the opponents team up against him 2-on-1. They taunt Escargot Man, urging him to fight, but he refuses. until Silver Eagle pulls a clever trick that makes the two enemies crash into each other. Silver Eagle escapes, but Escargot Man soon gets beaten badly too. Just as his opponent is about to smash him with a chair, something strange happens. In the mysterious room, the Pajama Man presses one of the angel buttons, and this makes Escargot Man magically stretch out his neck and knock out both enemies with a powerful headbutt. Confused that nothing else happens in the room, the Pajama Man keeps pressing the same button, and Escargot Man continues headbutting. Not just the enemies, but also Silver Eagle, the referee, Antonio, and even the bell itself. Still getting no reaction in his own room, the man begins testing other buttons. In the new room, every button the man presses seems to affect the real world in strange ways. One button makes a heavy metal singer in Los Angeles breathe fire on stage during a concert. Another causes a Russian magician to mess up his disappearing act, leaving his assistant stuck. A third makes a man in China start barking at his own dogs. The Pajama Man is close to giving up when he notices something different. Unlike the last rooms, this one has no ceiling. From above, he can see angels flying freely in the sky. This gives him a new idea. Instead of pressing the wall buttons, he will climb them. He starts grabbing and stepping on the button shapes as if they were climbing holds. Each time he pulls himself up or steps higher, something incredible happens on Earth. At first, it's small things like flowers blooming or an elephant dying. But the higher he climbs, the bigger the events, human inventions, historical moments, even rockets landing on the moon. By the time he reaches the top, his hair and beard have grown long. He no longer needs to hold the walls. He begins to float in the air, just like the angels. Using all the knowledge he gained in the earlier learning and practice phases, he now has control. Instead of pressing random buttons, he carefully chooses humanity's greatest moments on purpose. Finally, when he's done, the walls around him vanish and are replaced by white feathers. A shining portal appears and he steps through it into the last room. This final chamber is different. The walls are covered with images of the Earth's continents, and in the center stands a huge button, larger than all the others. The man slowly approaches it, ready to press. This is the last phase. The phase known as future,